Welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMA LOTN. This week, we're going over UFC 276, headlined by two title fights. We got Israel Adesanya in the main event going up against Jared Cannonier. Adesanya hoping to defend his middleweight title once again. And then in the co-main event, we got another Oceanic fighter, Alexander Volkanovski, looking to defend his title for the fourth time now, going up against Max Holloway in their trilogy fight. He's already up 2-0, but if anything we can take away from the 50 minutes they've already spent inside the cage, it's been damn close the entire way. So Max Holloway is more than deserving of getting the shot at the strap once again. He is clearly the number 2 guy right now in that division. And who else are we going to throw in there with Alexander Volkanovski to test him and try to push him even further into legendary status and maybe even GOAT status in the featherweight division. So very intriguing fights there to top the card, but a couple other great fights sprinkled out throughout. Like we said, the middleweight title eliminator between Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira. That should be a fun one, especially if you guys watched the press conference yesterday. You know that it's going to be some fire in there when Sean Strickland steps in there, and then he has a formidable opponent in Alex Pereira to go up against, not to mention the legend Robbie Lawler going in there against a willing dance partner in Brian Barbarena. And then obviously kicking off the main card, we got Sugar Sean O'Malley taking his first ever ranked test against Pedro Munhoz. Personally, I think it's a great stylistic matchup for him, but I'm very much looking forward to breaking down that fight. And not just myself, but with the guest that I'm going to be introducing very shortly here. Before I do bring him on real quick, another quick reminder for all the viewers and fans out there, the Lock of the Night Challenge, Dog of the Night Challenge, restarting on Sunday. So you're more than welcome to sign up by Sunday. Hit me up in the DMs on Twitter or Instagram. I can get you signed up. It's a great competition where we have almost 70 to 80 people in almost all of the pools. So great prizes out there, great cash prizes, all that stuff. Just test your mettle against everybody else in terms of predicting, picking a lock of the night, picking a dog of the night, and then seeing how you fare after the duration for each single competition. So make sure you guys go check that out. All right. Let's not waste any more time. You guys loved this guest when I brought him back, when I brought him onto the program in April for UFC 273. I thought we had great chemistry. A lot of people really enjoyed him on the show. They really enjoyed his insight, the chemistry that we had as well. And I was more than happy to bring him on. A little bit late notice that I gave him, but my man's living the life out there in Hawaii right now, so I thought I might as well bring him on, and he was gracious enough to carve out at least an hour here to share with us. So without further ado, let me bring in my guy, Elliot Marshall, chilling on his balcony over there in Hawaii. Elliot, how you doing, my friend?
It's called a lanai when you're out here, homie. It's called
I'm sorry, Elliot. Jeez Louise. Living his posh life over there. Jesus.
No, man, I always, thanks for having me back, man. I really enjoyed the show. Everyone says, like, wow, that was great. But I thought we really had a great time. So thanks for having me back, man, Preet.
No, absolutely. There are a couple things I want to touch on before we actually get into the card itself. First of which, give me a little respect on my guy, Anthony Hernandez, who I was comparing to Cain Velasquez. Look at these statistics from that fight that we broke down, Elliot. Before you say anything, listen to this. 8 takedowns, 90 significant strikes landed, 10.5 minutes in control time. Does that not sound like a Cain Velasquez type performance to you? Let me know.
My view is so amazing right now.
I had to start with it. As soon as he started landing those takedowns, I'm like, I can't wait to have Elliot back on.
Yeah, my view is amazing. Look, he's not maybe the greatest heavyweight of all time. Please don't put that kind of pressure on a brother. You start calling somebody Cain Velasquez, and the next thing you know, like they crumble under the pressure. Just let the man be the man.
I know.
Just let him do his thing. That's all my point was, man. My point wasn't that he isn't good or anything like that. My point was just let LeBron be LeBron. Why do we gotta compare him to MJ?
Yes,
because ain't nobody MJ.
Exactly. No, I completely. I just wanted to rag on you about that one.
I know.
As soon as I saw my guy Hernandez was thinking, I'm like, hey, that's exactly what I was hoping was going to happen. One thing I did do actually before we hopped on here was just look back at some of the work that you've actually put out yourself, on social media and YouTube and all that stuff. And one of the things that I came across was the TED Talk that you did at Palo Alto College, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Great work there, by the way. It was perfectly spoken. I believe that you hit pretty much all the notes that you want to hit on that. But one of the things that kind of stood out to me that I want to ask you about in regards to that was the result of your last fight in the UFC, right? I believe it was it Nikita Krylov? I believe that was.
No, it's Brandon Vera.
Oh, sorry, Brandon Vera. I apologize. Brandon Vera. The way you talked about it, you lost the first 2 rounds, then you beat the crap out of him in the 3rd round, which I absolutely agree with. And there is a case that you probably could have got a 10-8 in that round, which ultimately would have made it a draw. So my question is to you is, if you did get a draw, would you still have been fighting past that fight, or do you think that would have been your last fight no matter what?
There's nobody in the world that is luckier than me.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. And even in this scenario, it ended for me at a perfect time. Like looking back in hindsight, I had an appointment 4 days later. So that fight was a Saturday, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So on Tuesday of the very next week, I had an appointment to look at the building that I would later purchase and move our Denver school into. So, man, I don't know. I don't know what would have happened. Fate is fate. And for me, this is the way fate worked out. And I love fate. So that's what I'll say. Everyone's like, oh, if I could go back and change the past.
Yeah. Like that's what I was kind of like.
Be careful with that. Just be careful with that.
Like we've talked about our guy Brendan Schaub in the past as well, right? And he even said, like, if I had not gotten knocked out by a Nogueira, I probably would still be fighting. Or if I had not gotten knocked out by Travis Brown, maybe I'd still be fighting. Which is why I kind of want to pose the question to you as well, right? Like you were, again, I know I even looked at MMA decisions, and it seemed like a vast majority of people thought that fight should have been a draw because of the big 3rd round that you had. So I'm interested to have known what your mindset probably would have been.
Yeah, man. Of course,
had you gotten the draw there.
How are you going to give up on your dream like that?
Yeah.
How are you ever going to give up on your dream if it's not forced upon you?
Yeah.
Right. So it was forced upon me. So, all right, there I go, but like, if you don't wake up, looking back at it analytically now, right? Like, man, there's no way I was going to be the light heavyweight champ of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, and there's no way I was going to make $1 million or millions of dollars. So what are you doing? Right. Yeah. Once that's seen and it's not a possibility, then you're done. Because look, on the way up, great, go. I get that, but I wasn't on the way up anymore. This is who I was. I was this fighter that was going to fill undercards and things like that, right? So, I had the potential. Like you saw the potential that I had against Brandon Vera, like in that 3rd round, and it all came out. And I talked about it in that TED Talk.
Yeah.
That potential went on to spur great things for me in other areas of my life. Yeah,
I love it.
What can I do? I worry about some of these guys.
Yes. That fight past their expiration date pretty much.
Look, we're going to talk about one today, Jim Miller.
Yes. I'm very interested to get into that matchup when we get there. But
I worry about a guy like Jim Miller. Just how much money does he have, right? And money's not everything, but like he does not have enough money from fighting to survive. I don't worry about Cowboy in a sense, right? Because Cowboy's got millions of dollars.
Yeah, he's chilling. Yeah,
he's fine. So like Cowboy can do whatever he wants. Like on a personal level, it's different. But just on so, I got really lucky. I got really, really lucky. They said I wasn't good enough, and it was a perfect time for me. It was a perfect time for me.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I appreciate the insight in regards to that. And you did a very good job, obviously, also on the MMA Hour back in February of 2020 to kind of break it all down as well. So I plead anybody after this show, please do seek that interview out and listen to it. Even listen to TED Talk as well. Elliot does a great job of kind of summarizing his fight career and what it has allowed him to do moving into the future as well. All right.
Can I give a little plug real fast?
Yeah, go for it, my friend.
Guys, I'm going into this thought leadership world, doing talks, keynote talks. So if you're interested, please ElliotMarshall.com, hit me up, or just DM me on Instagram, wherever. So this is an area of my life that I've really started to try to expand lately. So if you're listening to this and you have a company or you're the manager of a company and your team's struggling, dealing with failure, or just overcoming obstacles, or if you're in the mental health space, I would love to see how it is that we could work together.
There you guys go. I'll give Elliot another opportunity to plug it near the end of the show when we have some more live viewers as well. But please do seek it out. Elliot knows exactly what the hell he's talking about, as you guys will find out over the next hour or so. Hey, trust me. Once we get through this podcast, people are going to be a little bit more sold on you, my friend. All right, let's get into the card. I know there's a couple fighters that you may not be too familiar with, but again, we can gloss over those matchups. But
no,
I know there's a lot of big matchups.
I think I know just about one person in every fight, so we should be good.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's kick it off with the first fight of the night. Yeah. We're looking at a women's bantamweight belt between Jessica Rose Clark and Yulia Stoliarenko. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 150 on Clark and plus 130 on Stoliarenko. Now, Stoliarenko used to have weight cutting issues, right? There was a point in time back in 2021 where she tried, walking up to the scale. She gets to the scale and she literally falls off the scale because of a bad weight cut, a horrible, horrible weight cut in terms of, even making weight to begin with. Obviously, they canceled the fight. She doesn't end up fighting that night, but since then she's had solid weight cuts. She's walking confidently up to the scale now, and we saw it today as well. She makes the mark there. Same with Jessica Rose Clark. Now, in terms of how these girls match up, Yulia Stoliarenko, I like to call her the Lithuanian Ronda Rousey because 8 of her 9 victories are all by arm bars. She likes to seek the arm bar. She's very active off her back. She likes to throw up her legs. She likes to not allow her opponent to settle on top. There are even fights where you see her trying to pull guard, but opponents like Yana Kunitskaya are literally with their double underhooks trying to hold her up because they want nothing to do with the ground game of Yulia Stoliarenko. Where on the flip side with Jessica Rose Clark, seems like she uses her grappling to her advantage when she can, right? She can grind out girls like Sarah Alpar, and she can grind out girls like Jocelyn Edwards, but when she fights a better jiu-jitsu player or a better judoka, like she did in her last fight against Stephanie Yeager, she gets submitted. And I'm expecting the same thing here where she might get a little bit overzealous with her grappling and possibly find herself in a submission attempt from Stoliarenko. I am leaning on the Stoliarenko side. I've actually made a bet on her submission at plus 400 here. I think it's a great bet on Stoliarenko, considering that's usually her path to victory. And if you're giving me plus 400 odds, that's probably what I'm going to roll with here. So to kick off the night, I think we see an upset in the women's bantamweight division. I'm going to go Stoliarenko via submission. What can you tell me about this matchup, Elliot?
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a very cautious Jessica Rose Clark to start. A lot of jabbing and a lot of teep kicking. But I think as the fight progresses, she's not the best at sticking to the game plan on the feet sometimes, right? Yeah. Because she has good striking. So she's going to get overzealous and she's going to end up in that clinch scenario. And I see it the same way.
I love it. I love it. And for anybody that hasn't seen Yulia Stoliarenko versus Lisa Versosa, I highly recommend you guys go back on Fight Pass and watch that. It was an Invicta main event, 5 rounds. Probably one of the bloodiest wars I've ever seen. Yulia absolutely torches Lisa Versosa's face with a bunch of elbows, cuts her up, and just paints the canvas red. One of the more fun women's MMA fights I've ever seen in my life. So please go watch that if you guys haven't had the opportunity. All right, let us move on to another women's fight here. This one taking place in the flyweight division. We got Jessica Eye taking on, I guess we can still call her somewhat of a prospect, Macy Barber. In terms of odds, we're getting minus 285 on Macy Barber, plus 240 on Jessica Eye. I think that's a little bit too wide there, right? We got to give Jessica Eye a little bit more credit. I know her public perception is really not the greatest amongst fans. I don't know what it is about her personality or anything, but it just seems like people don't really like her. And I think it starts to trickle down into the odds, which is what we're seeing here. Like, just for example, Macy Barber was a minus 170 favorite in her last fight against Montana De La Rosa, who, with all due respect to De La Rosa, I think that Jessica Eye has a little bit better of a resume, a little bit more experience, and probably could make this fight a lot closer than De La Rosa was in that spot. De La Rosa, solid grappler, had a wrestling background, if I'm not mistaken. Couldn't get any of that going, as Macy Barber was definitely the more physical fighter in that fight. As we saw, she was able to kind of overpower her in clinch positions, really control the fight no matter where she took it. However, if this turns out to be a 15-minute kickboxing fight, Jessica Eye can make it very close. It wasn't that long ago. She had a very good fight against Viviane Araujo where she beat her, outstruck her. And Araujo, in my opinion, very, very good fighter as well. Very good striking, very good power. But she just got outstruck that night by Jessica Eye, who's just a little bit more gritty. So I expect this fight to play out much closer than the odds suggest. However, I still think the future, if I believe that's her nickname still, Macy Barber will likely come out on top here, using her physicality, landing the better strikes. I would much rather bet the fight to go to decision, which is minus 250, slightly better price tag than paying on Macy Barber. But outside of Shevchenko decapitating Jessica Eye a couple of years ago with that beautiful head kick, I don't think it's going to be easy for Macy Barber to put Jessica Eye away. So give me Barber by decision, and the fight to go to decision as well. What are you thinking here, Elliot? Are you impressed with what you've been seeing from Macy or what?
You're right on. You are right on here, Manpreet. Yeah. So I 100% agree with you. Minus the fact, I mean, look, the odds are a little too big, but I do understand them because Jessica Eye hasn't fought well recently. You know, she's got a lot of turmoil in her personal life, right? All over the place, you know. So I think all of this plays into, and people don't like her. Yeah. Right. Like you combine them all and then that's the odds. But yeah, this is going to be Macy Barber by decision or Jessica Eye by a little bit of luck, you know? So that is how I see it. Macy in her last fight looked good against De La Rosa. Not overly good, right? No, I wouldn't say overly good, but just good. She isn't the Macy that everyone thought she was, the killer, you know, that everyone was making her out to be when she first came on the scene, right? Life does that to you a little bit sometimes. You know, fighting does it to you. So I think Macy Barber is going to bully Jessica Eye around the cage is what I see. And the thing that I really think with Macy is she does have an indomitable spirit. So the fight she lost against Miranda.
Were you in the corner there for that fight?
No, I wasn't in the corner.
No. Okay.
So that was funny. That was so I wasn't in the corner with De La Rosa either for her fight with De La Rosa. I used to work with De La Rosa. And Miranda, maybe one of the worst decisions in MMA history.
She won that fight. No doubt about it. She won that fight.
So, you know, Macy can tend to struggle when she can't just impose her will physically on people. So that will be the question mark in this fight is if Jessica Eye can handle Macy physically, then, you know, we'll see.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Very intriguing fight here between Uriah Hall and Andre Muniz. In terms of odds, we got minus 320 on Andre Muniz, plus 265 on Uriah Hall. Now, I have a big issue with the odds here. I think it is way too wide. When you have a guy like Andre Muniz who's on a 3-fight finishing streak where he's finishing guys in the first round, he has submission victories over Eric Anders. He broke Jacare Souza's arm in one of those fights as well. And then I believe the fight before that was Bartosz Fabinski, where he got an armbar there as well. But the fight before that against Antonio Hoyo left a lot to be desired on my end. You know, that's why I think he was an underdog going into the Bartosz Fabinski fight. And then all of a sudden he's just pulling off these first round victories. And now he's a huge favorite over a guy like Uriah Hall. You know, say what you want about Uriah's mentality and mental state and, you know, being able to be prepared and ready to go and fight. The guy's still tough to put away, right? He gave up 10.5 minutes of control time to Antonio Carlos Jr., did not get submitted, and still won that fight because he was dishing out the damage. He had a crisp jab. The work that he's been doing down there at Fortis MMA with Saif Saud has been absolutely tremendous. I believe he's been spending time at Fight Ready as well with Santino DeFranco and Eddie Cha and those guys, which I respect as well. But I don't see Muniz submitting him. And if he doesn't submit him, how does this fight look going into rounds 2 and 3? Because I think that Uriah Hall, king of the comeback, could eventually, you know, start putting his punches together, start stuffing some takedowns, start getting back to his feet, and really putting the pressure on Muniz with his striking. And I think he actually even ends up knocking him out in this spot. So I've taken a bet personally on Uriah Hall at plus 275. I think that line is absolutely egregious. And then I even took a shot on his KO line at plus 400 because I think he is the much better striker here. Muniz needs to grapple and grapple successfully to have any type of chance of winning this fight. But I think a lot of it is based on him getting that early submission. I think that Uriah Hall has good enough submission defense that he should be able to stay out of those subs, and then he should be able to move forward, eventually find that knockout and get his hand raised here and pull off another upset on this 276 card. What about yourself, Elliot? What can you? I know you're a jiu-jitsu guy, right? Like. Have you heard about Muniz in his jiu-jitsu career? Like, who would you rank higher, actually? This is a good question, actually. Antonio Carlos Jr. or Andre Muniz? Who has a more decorated jiu-jitsu career?
I believe it's Antonio Carlos Jr. I think Antonio Carlos Jr. has a world title to his name. Now look, but look, first of all, we have to understand things don't transfer that necessarily, right?
Every fight is its own fight.
Right. And Munhoz's seems to transfer better to MMA, right? Now, that being said, I know he beat Jacare, okay? But we're not talking about the Jacare that was the Jacare, okay? This is like Uriah Hall's win over Anderson Silva.
Yes. Good point. Good comparison.
Those are very similar wins in the sense of like, yo, shit, Jacare is a former world champ and Anderson's the former GOAT, or is in the conversation for GOAT. So, but not who they were when it went down, you know? So let's start there. Secondly, I probably do think that Munhoz might win, but those odds are way too big.
Yeah.
Those odds are way too big. Okay? Like, even if I think this is a pick'em fight, personally. You know, I could see this being a pick'em fight because this I mean, look, Munhoz's wins when we look at them, okay?
And sorry, just to quickly put it into perspective, the odds are implying that he wins 76% of the time. Minus 220 means 76%. That's crazy.
That's crazy. Continue. That's crazy. Look, the only big win that he has is Jacare. And it's impressive. I'm not going to say that it's not impressive. Okay. But when you go back, and I'm just on my phone here looking through things, you know, so that I can be accurate. I mean, when you look at who Uriah Hall has even just fought, okay?
Way more.
Sean Strickland. Look, the Weidman fight doesn't really count because they didn't fight. I don't care when you fight Anderson Silva. If you go 4 rounds with Anderson Silva, that's some work, you know? That's some work. Antonio Carlos Jr., who is a hell of a fighter. Paulo Costa, Gegard Mousasi twice, Derek Brunson, Rob Whitaker. Like, this is just we're at a different level of fighting. And look, in his last 5 fights, his only loss. Okay, let's just say his last 6 fights. He's only lost to Paulo Costa and Sean Strickland, who are in the top 5 of the division, right? Like, title, like, man, put some respect on the man's name. Like, you're thinking, I'm not saying that Munhoz can't win. That's not my argument. But we're just talking odds here.
Yeah.
You know, if you made me bet who I think is going to win, I think I'm going to go Munhoz.
Yeah.
But 50% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's betting at the end of the day. You got to play percentages. As much as people hate when I bring that up, like, that's how you become a long-term winner. Everybody wants to win tonight. Everybody wants to hit the jackpot tonight, but in the long term, betting the minus 320 is not going to pay off for you, especially in a fight that we see much closer on odds that we're seeing here as well.
Right. I think sometimes people, I don't know, man, when people watch shows, and because we're talking betting here a little bit, right? You're talking a lot about odds. That is not to do with who I think will win the fight. You know, it blends obviously, but it's not a. I don't know that I would bet. You almost have to bet on Uriah Hall because of the odds here in this fight, is what I would say. But
we're going to talk about it a little bit more in future fights that we're going to be breaking down in this podcast. But I think it's perfect in regards to the argument for the last 2 main events that we just got, where we had 2 big favorites, where everybody knew that the fights were going to be closer than the odds suggested, and then betting the underdog ended up paying off. I'm talking about Calvin Kattar versus Josh Emmett. Say what you want about the decision. It ended up paying out much closer than minus 250 Calvin Kattar, plus 200 Josh Emmett. Even Arman Tsarukyan against Mateusz Gamrot from this past weekend, minus 280 for Tsarukyan. Gamrot edges it out in a fight that a lot of people expected to play out much closer than the odds suggests. That's why we play the odds and not the fighter. My man John Anik always says it. We play the number, not the fighter. And that's what we have to remember in the gambling world.
But, in the gambling world, yes. Sitting at home with your homies, like betting, like Eric and Eric Nixick and I are friends, and we do our podcast.
Shout out to the Second Cell podcast.
Yeah, we bet dinners, with no odds.
Yeah, see, so it's 50-50 then, right?
Yeah,
You guys are essentially making it 50-50.
Yeah, well, but we only bet on fights that we think are 50-50 picks.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Like we're not betting like what would be it on this card. I don't know. What's a big landslide fight here?
The biggest discrepancy in terms of odds on this card are currently Adesanya and Jared Cannonier, where he's minus 500.
Yeah, sorry, right? Exactly. Sorry, I didn't scroll up enough. There's no way we're going fit. We're not betting dinner on that fight.
Yeah,
because it's just so likely that Adesanya is going to win, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
you want some differences. Essentially, you want some reasoning to bet quote unquote the guy that you want to back, right? Like you have to have that. No, I completely understand that.
Yeah. So I think sometimes people make that mistake when they're thinking about, like, when they hear betting, you're like, oh, how would I bet this fight? Who I bet's going to win with my homie sitting over beers, drinking and watching the fights. It's not what we're talking about.
Completely different. Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got UFC veteran Brad Tavares, one of your Eric Nixick's guys here, going up against Dricus du Plessis. In terms of odds, we got du Plessis as a slight favorite here at minus 145. I'm seeing minus 150 now, and plus 130 the return on the veteran Brad Tavares. Very interesting fight here because it's like one of those quintessential, you have a knockout artist against a guy who's pretty much good at everything in Brad Tavares, right? Brad Tavares is a great striker, great technical striker, uses combinations very well, has a good defensive grappling game as well, which is why he's able to stop the takedowns of Omari Akhmadov and Antonio Carlos Jr. and then just piece them up on the feet. But one thing that I've been kind of finding when you're looking at it historically speaking is when he fights strikers that are better than him or have more power than him, he kind of starts to fall short, right? Edmund Shabazian knocks him out. Israel Adesanya, we'll write that fight off. It's Izzy. We'll write that fight off. It's Izzy at the end of the day,
and
right?
Izzy didn't finish him.
Izzy didn't finish him. He went the full 25 minutes there, but he still, I think he 50-45 that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
exactly. Tim Bosch knocks him out. Not a better technical striker, but a guy with more power from back in the day. Now you're going up against a guy in Dricus du Plessis who all 16 of his wins by finish. More submission victories than knockouts, but in the UFC, he's knocked out both of his opponents, Trevin Giles, and obviously in his UFC debut against Marcus Perez. Du Plessis had a very decorated career across the pond. Obviously, he was the KSW champion, beating Roberto Soldic, one of the biggest names outside of the UFC. And then obviously Soldic gets his revenge after that. But I do think that this is going to be one of those fights where Tavares is winning this fight until he's not. And I think that eventually du Plessis is going to be able to catch him with the strike here and put him out. With that said, with that being his only path to victory, I do not feel comfortable betting him at minus 145, because if that punch doesn't land, Tavares runs away with this fight, in my opinion. So I think you would have to bet this du Plessis by KO, which I think hangs around plus 180-ish, rather than taking that money line at minus 145. And then on the flip side for Tavares, I know he finished Krzysztof Jotko a couple years ago, but he's not a big knockout puncher. Du Plessis seems quite durable. I think Tavares will, technically beat him over 15 minutes, likely take home a decision victory if he wins. But I do lean on the du Plessis side. I think it's just a matter of time before he eventually finds that chin. I think he's a little bit more explosive. I think he's slightly faster. I think he's going to find that chin of Tavares and put him out here. No bet from me, but I'm going to go with the South African here. How about yourself, Elliot? I know you have some insight on Brad Tavares. Anything that you'd be willing to share here would be great.
Yeah, you can't bet this fight. Is the number one thing that I would say. Who do I want to win? Obviously, I want Tavares to win. He's my boy Eric's, homie. So I'm going with Tavares, and I think I think he doesn't get knocked out.
Okay.
I think he doesn't get knocked out. I do. So the two options you gave for betting this fight were I 100% agree with. We're 100% in line here. Tavares is either going to win a decision, and he's going to out-touch him, and he's going to move, and he's going to stay on his bicycle a little bit, right? Like if he stands in front of du Plessis, it's going to be a problem. So he's going to be on his bike a little bit. He's going to pick and pull a lot, right? You're going to see a lot of picking and pulling from Tavares, and this is not anything Eric gave away to me, but just the styles of the fight.
Yeah.
So that's going to be key for Tavares. And look, du Plessis is going to try to take his head off. So
should be a fun fight. Should tell us where Brad Tavares is at.
Should be a very fun fight. It should be a very fun fight. Look, Brad Tavares is one of these guys that I was talking about that I worry about, right?
Yes. Well, funnily enough, I think he's only because he hasn't fought that much over the last couple of years, right? Like it was only 4 fights ago that he fought Israel Adesanya. That was July of 2018. So he's had 4 fights over the last 4 years.
There's 2 things I worry about when it comes to fighters: damage, like are you not doing okay?
Yeah.
And what is next?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I won't say that I'm not worried about him in the damage sense. Right.
It's what's next. What is he parlaying this career into?
He's not going to be the champion.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's
fair
just.
To say. He's 34.
He's 34 years old.
Yeah.
He was fighting when I was fighting.
Yeah.
Right. So he's been fighting for over a decade. He's not like everyone's like, oh, but Glover Teixeira.
Yeah. That's an anomaly, though, right?
Right. It's an anomaly, right? Will Glover ever win the title again? We'll never know. You know, he struck lightning. He got it. He got to be the champ. Amazing for him, right? Amazing for him. But I still say Glover's going to have to do something after fighting.
Yes.
Glover doesn't have enough money to just ride off into the sunset, right? Because he only had one title fight.
Yeah.
Right. So he only saw a pay-per-view bonus one time. Okay. One time. What, that's where I get concerned with a guy like Tavares is like, what is he going to do?
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of a prediction, you are going with Brad Tavares.
Yeah,
I'm going to be with Plessis here
decision.
As well. We'll see how it goes. Plus 175 for Tavares to win by decision. Not too bad of a line. I don't even mind his money line if you'd like him at all. Have underdog money. Mm-hmm. All right. Let us move on to the next fight here. We got a hot prospect, 9-0 Ian Gary, training out of Sanford MMA down there in Florida, going up against gifted Gabe Green. Very interesting fight here. Ian Gary brought into the UFC as a Cage Warriors champion. A lot of hype around his name, and he's delivered in his first 2 UFC fights, beating guys like Darian Weeks and Jordan Williams. But now he has a very tough test in front of him in Gabe Green. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 180 for Ian Gary and plus 155 for Gabe Green, which in my opinion is quite accurate, right? Like it's going to be Gabe Green crashing forward, looking to take off the head of Ian Gary. But I think Ian Gary is slightly the better technical striker here. He's going to be the longer guy as well. I'll quickly get the statistics here in terms of what the metrics here and what the actual difference is in terms of their heights. We got 6'3" for Ian Gary, 5'10" for Gabe Green. So roughly a 4 to 5 inch height advantage there for Ian Gary. Only a 1 inch reach advantage, but I think it's going to be a lot more pronounced, especially with the height difference here. But we'll see Ian Gary stick to that 1-2 down the middle, maybe even use a teep kick up the middle to keep Gabe on the outside. Gabe, a little bit too reckless for this technical style of Ian Gary, in my opinion. A lot of wide winging hooks, which should leave openings for Ian Gary to counter him right down the middle. I don't know if Ian Gary will put the foot on the gas to try to get him out of there. Green has been quite durable, so very tough to put away. I do think that we'll see Gary pull away with this fight. Maybe he might get dropped at a certain point. He will face adversity in this fight, which is why I'm not betting on Ian Gary in this spot. I want to see how he reacts to it, facing adversity and how he battles back with it. Training, under the tutelage of Henry Hooft and those guys down there at Sanford MMA. I know they have him readily prepared for this matchup, but it's a show me spot for this prospect here for the young 9-0 Ian Gary. In terms of age as well, he's still quite young. Let me just quickly pull up that as well. He's 24 years old. He's a 97 baby, Elliot Marshall. What were you doing in 97?
What was I doing in 97? I was driving a blue Volvo station wagon trying to bump Victory by Puffy and Biggie.
Hey, dirty track.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
I love it. What are your thoughts on this matchup? But what do you like here? I'm not sure how much you've heard about Gary, but
I'm pretty sure Gary was on the last card you and I broke down.
Yes, he was. You're right, against Darian Weeks. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm sticking with him. I think he gets this done. I liked your analysis, and I think you got to beat. And it's going to be hard for me to bet against an undefeated fighter, especially when they start hitting that 9-0, 10-0 area. And they have I'm going to ride that pony until I don't ride that pony, and I think the odds are correct. I think this is a good fight. I would not bet this fight. This is, if you truly want to gamble, bet this fight.
Yeah. No, Gary should get it done here, but it won't be without adversity as well, in my opinion. So you will be clinching your butt cheeks a little bit should he get clipped on the chin, but I do think he'll be able to pass through it and get that W here. All right, very interested to hear your thoughts on this next matchup because we got New Jersey-born native Elliot Marshall having to decide here between Jim Miller or the guy that he grew up training with and fighting with, Mr. Donald Cowboy Cerrone. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 190 for Jim Miller, plus 160 to return on Donald Cerrone. Before I get into the breakdown here, another thing that I came across that you were a part of, Elliot, was that BMF cast that he did back in the day on the BMF ranch with you, Alistair Overeem, Six Gun Gibson, Paul Felder. It was hilarious seeing the baby faces on everybody's from 6 years ago, especially Paul Felder with a nice little cut on under his eye. I'm sure he got from training or something like that. But what do you remember from like your trip down there to the BMF ranch? Was it like, I believe it was preparing Cowboy for the RDA title fight that he had, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. What a crazy experience. Like in so many ways. Like, okay, so who else was there? Not to get too crazy, was Andrea Lee.
Oh, wow.
But before she was anybody, she just hit
mad young
with her crazy ex-husband.
Oh, yeah, that fucking guy. Yeah.
Who, I mean, I think the craziest part was he has swastika tattoos.
Yeah.
And I'm a black Jew.
Oh my God.
Right? So
like the worst combination in terms of being beside that guy. But yeah, please.
So we're down there and we see them, right? Yeah. And then the next thing we know, and then we're sitting at a table inside, and I'm just like, yo, dude, what's up with that?
And what did he reply with?
He was in jail. He came up with some crazy story, you know? And so he was cool. So we let it be cool. Okay, hold on. He's not cool, but we just let it ride, you know? But that was a really interesting scenario. Man. Whew. I mean, and the ranch is the ranch. The ranch is crazy. Cowboy just lives like a crazy man. So
that seems like an MMA fan's dream, honestly, to be a fly on the wall at the BMF ranch, especially during that like era, right? Like I think now it's not as popular as it was back in the day. He's got kids now, right? He's got to tone it down a little bit. You can't be popping off at the mouth like he used to. But like, I'm sure that was a fun time and a fun experience. How long were you down there for?
A week.
Yeah, just a week's time over there. But I'm sure it must have been fucking.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it was a good time.
I loved it. So in regards to this matchup, right? You have pretty good intel on Cowboy Cerrone, obviously coming up with them and all that. I'm not sure how close you are with him at this point in time, but he's been on a rough run, right? 5 straight losses. 6 if you want to count that no contest with Nico Price. Hasn't really been able to find his stride. And then on the flip side for Jim Miller, he's going out there and knocking out guys that maybe don't deserve to be in the UFC, essentially, in terms of like where they're at with their skill level and all that, beating debutants. So he's been active and finishing guys, whereas Cowboy Cerrone is right now on a 6-fight losing skid. And this is actually a rematch for a fight that took place 8 years ago. He knocked
him out. Cowboy knocked him out.
Yeah. Twice he finished him. If you remember, he beat him he dropped him with the body kick. Should have been stopped there, and then eventually finished him with the head kick after that. That was in Atlantic City in 2014. Here they are 8 years later trying to get it done. I think Cowboy is the better fighter here overall. I think he has way more tools to win this fight, but the kind of his kryptonite, which is kind of, really messed him up in a lot of his fights, especially in big spots, is he's a slow starter, right? RDA got him out of there pretty quickly. Connor got him out of there pretty quickly. Like that's where he seems to fall short. But if he can get over that, and when he does, we see him start to really open up and, get comfortable with his combinations and his jiu-jitsu and all that. And I really do think that a lot of Miller's success is front-loaded here. He needs to get that early finish, because if he doesn't, he's going to go out there, and I think we'll see Cowboy put the work on him. So I am leaning Cowboy here. I do think he's a good underdog pick. And I do think that he'll be able to outstrike Jim Miller here. I don't know if he'll be able to finish him again, but I do think he'll outstrike him, possibly take him to a decision, and you're getting plus 500 on Cowboy Cerrone to win this fight by decision. I'm going Cowboy. What are you feeling here, Elliot?
Come on, man. I love Cowboy. You can't bet Cowboy right now.
Oh, interesting. Okay, hit me, please.
Cowboy hasn't won in years.
That's true, but look at the matchups he's going up against, right? Alex Morono, probably the weakest name there, but Morono goes down. He bites his mouthpiece. He throws big shots. He knew the best way to get Cowboy out of there was to crash him early in that first round, and he eventually got him out of there. But does Jim Miller have that ability to get him out of there in that first round? Possible. You get him plus 250 for Jim Miller to win in round 1, but after that, if Cowboy survives that, rounds 2, round 3, he can start putting it together, maybe get back into his groove.
Do me a favor.
Yep.
When's the last time that Cowboy looked good? Tell me.
You're right. It's been a while. He looked competitive in the Pettis fight. I'll give him that. The second Pettis fight, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, exactly. He gets run over by Conor, gets run over by Gaethje. Not competitive fight, but Tony Ferguson busts him up pretty bad. He looked great in the Ally Quinta fight, which was May of 2019. That was a fight he was the underdog in, but absolutely dismantles Ally Quinta over 5 rounds. To me, it's more so the level of competition he's been going up against in these last couple of fights have been very difficult for him to overcome. Jim Miller, coming into his 40th UFC fight.
Yeah, hold on. Nico Price. We're saying Nico Price is a very high-level guy?
Nico Price is a guy that will put power on you. And I think that was kind of getting to Cowboy in that fight. Price isn't the most technical guy, but power-wise, he can definitely intimidate you, I think. And that's what I think was
Alex Moreno. Alex Moreno is a high-level guy?
Essentially, no. But I would say that in a fight with Jim Miller at this point in time.
Hold on. We're going to talk about Jim Miller in a second. We're talking about Cowboy. Okay? The current Anthony Pettis. Not the champion Anthony Pettis. The current one. He's high level? You would say?
You can't be losing to Stevie Ray in 2022. That's all I'm going to say.
Right, man. Right? How high level is Conor?
We know that was a setup match for Conor, right? That was just his way to get his... Yeah.
Of course. So I'm asking you, how high level is Conor? When's the last time? This is the last time Conor won a fight.
Yep. You're right.
Okay.
But it's the best kryptonite against Cowboy, right? Is getting him out of there early. Conor knew that.
Of course.
Jumped on him right away. Got him out of there.
Right away. Of course. Now
That's
look,
Gaethje's Cowboy throughout his career.
Right. Gaethje's high level. I'm not going to argue Gaethje's not high level. I would say that Cowboy hasn't fought really and I'm not saying that Conor's not a high level superstar. Conor's definitely the highest level of superstars. But as far as really high level, I don't think Cowboy's fought anybody really high level lately since 2019. Mm-hmm. Okay. So to bet on Cowboy is kind of crazy to me. To bet on Jim Miller is equally as crazy. I don't even like this fight. I don't want to see this fight. This is I don't. Yeah,
I feel like I'm like insulting you by telling you to break down this fight because you just don't want to talk about.
Look, I mean, there's so much to break down here.
Yes.
But it's all ancient history. It's all it's like breaking down Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. In a way, they're amazing champions. Those two guys were, but they're not who they were. Look, Cowboy smashes Jim Miller. If we're talking about Cowboy versus Jim Miller at their peaks, it's not even that close. You know, Cowboy smashes him. Cowboy's a way better fighter. Mm-hmm. But this is Dana likes them both, so they're still fighting.
Yeah, and this is going to be a record-breaking spot for Jim Miller, 40th UFC walk to the octagon that he's going to have. But this will also give us a number 1 most UFC wins as well. Both these guys are tied with Andrei Arlovski for, I believe, 27 UFC victories. Whoever comes out victorious this weekend will hold that sole spot at the top of the mountain here. In terms of so let's get odds out of it. Give me a prediction. Who do you think comes out on top?
Jim Miller.
In my opinion, first likely he gets him out of there in the first round. You get him plus 250 on that. You don't think he finishes him in the first round? No. You think this goes 15? Interesting. Last time we saw Jim Miller win a decision, 2016 against Thiago Alves. So
29-28, Jim Miller. He survives he survives the third round.
Okay. I'm gonna go the opposite. I'm gonna go 29-28 Cowboy.
Hold on.
Round 3. Go ahead.
I'm changing my opinion.
Ooh.
Nobody gets the most wins in UFC history. I'm going.
Don't tell me draw.
I'm going draw 28-28.
Getting that 10-8 round 3 for Cowboy.
Giving that 10-8 round to Cowboy in round 3.
Dude, that would be just hilarious, especially because I know they're going to be pumping up that before the fight is whoever wins this fight is going to have most UFC victories.
What do I get, Manpreet, is what I want to know for calling this fight correctly.
I'll have to come out. I'll have to think of something to award you with. Maybe
I need if this is a 28-28 draw, I need something. I don't know what it is either.
I'll figure it out, but I'll make sure to pump it out. I'll clip this and I'll send it out on social media and we'll try to make it go viral. All right, is that good? Is that good?
Great. Great. Perfect.
There we go. Mystic Elliot. Or Mystic Marshall, I should say.
Mystic Marshall.
I love it. All right, let's keep this thing moving along. I don't want to take too much of your time on this Hawaii morning for you.
Bro, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, man.
All right, next up, it is the prelim headliner. We're going from the old grizzled vets to young guys here who should put on a fight of the night type performance. We got Brad Riddell, stablemate of Israel Adesanya, going up against Jalen Turner, who's been really turning heads as of late. In terms of odds, we're getting a slight favorite here, -145 on Jalen Turner, +125 the return on Brad Riddell. Now, talk about the worst possible UFC debut you can have for Jalen Turner, coming in on short notice against none other than Vicente Luque. Not the first fight you want in the UFC, especially against a guy who, especially for Jalen Turner, who wasn't fighting that level of competition on the regional scene. So he obviously loses that fight, but since then has been able to put together a tremendous run here, finishing a bunch of guys and looking very good, right? He's a 6'3" lightweight. This guy is huge. He's long and he's gangly, but he uses that very effectively. He uses that range very well. Uses that 1-2 down the middle. I don't know how close that lawnmower is to you right now, but it is getting a little distracting.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Here it is. Here, I'll go inside. Sorry.
That would be great. No worries. I'm just trying to think about the listeners here. I know that.
Yeah, my bad.
That as well. All good. I love the view that we got, and I'm sure you do too. Perfect. Beautiful. In regards to Jalen Turner, uses that reach very well, uses that 1-2 down the middle to keep his opponents at bay very well as well. Uses his right hand from that southpaw position, very educated, right? He likes to use that right hook, the lead right hook, to really damage his opponents. Sometimes he mixes it up with an uppercut. Something that he does very well that I like a lot is he feints the hook or an uppercut to really try to land the most damage on his opponents. And that's where he's able to put these guys down and put them out. So I like Jalen Turner here. I think he's going to land the better shots on Brad Riddell. Riddell really needs to exchange inside the pocket to have success. I'd be surprised if Brad Riddell actually is successful in goading Jalen Turner to exchanging in the pocket. We're talking about a 6 to 7 inch, it's a almost an 8-inch height advantage that Jalen Turner is going to be having here, as well as a 6-inch reach advantage. I think he's going to use all of that very effectively here, and it will allow him to finish Brad Riddell in this spot. What do you have you heard much of Jalen Turner? What do you think?
I haven't heard much of him.
6'3" lightweight is not.
It's really tall. So yeah, and what I will say is, I think you broke down Brad Riddell really well.
Yeah.
I've coached against him in the Dober fight.
Yes.
Sorry about that. So,
yeah, no, I would love to hear your thoughts on that specific matchup, because that was a close fight, man. Dober hurt him a bunch of times, and I think that's where Jalen can succeed as well, because I think he'll be able to use that reach well to hurt him from the outside and possibly put him away. But please let me know what your thoughts are.
But he's been training with Izzy too.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
God, I was gonna go Riddell until I thought your breakdown was good.
Well, let's do this. When you guys were preparing for the Dober and Riddell fight, give me some insight into that. What did you guys see in Riddell?
Just don't exchange in the pocket.
Yeah, get in, get out.
Just don't exchange in the pocket, right? But the problem is that's Drew's style too.
Yes.
He
was getting the better of him in those exchanges, though, right?
Look,
that forced Brad to wrestle as well.
Right. He was getting the better of them in all of the exchanges, minus the one that happened at the end, which was the deciding exchange.
End of the third, yes. That was the deciding factor.
That was the deciding factor in that fight. He lost Drew. 10 seconds of the fight.
Yeah.
Right. But it ended up making him lose the fight. So Riddell's a very tough guy. He's very durable, and he's very, very hard to put away. Drew hit him with some massive shots in the beginning. They had a great fight. I think, it was fight of the night. And what I think is going to happen is I think he catches Turner. I think he gets inside, and I think he comes over the top of Turner.
I think he gets the knockout here.
I think he gets the knockout.
That is my concern. Turner is very much on his front foot when he starts fights. Fast starter, quick starter. But as fights start to go deeper, as we saw in the Matt Frevola fight, as we started to see in the Brock Weaver fight, he starts to give up that front foot. But luckily, in the Brock Weaver fight, gets that knockdown, follows up with the submission, gets the victory there. But in the Frevola fight, was not able to fight back. Riddell will definitely fight back and make it very difficult. So if Turner doesn't get him out of there early, makes it very difficult for me to be confident in Turner the later that this fight goes. Ultimately, why I'm not.
What are the odds in this fight?
Minus 145 for Jalen Turner, plus 125 for Brad Riddell. So slight underdog on the Riddell side. Yeah.
Look, these again are good odds. They're good at this.
Yeah, exactly. It was actually a pick 'em earlier in the week, but over the last couple of days, a lot of money coming in on Jalen Turner, making him the bigger favorite here. So public liking what they're seeing on the prospect here. Let's see if he can pull off his biggest win to date. All right, that is a wrap on the prelims here. Shout out to the 100 live viewers that we currently have. Appreciate you guys rocking with us on this Friday afternoon. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe, and show my guy Elliot some love as well. I do have his Instagram linked in the description below. Make sure you guys go follow him over there. And then on the back end of the show, I'll let him plug all the great ventures that he's in. Post fighting, he has a lot of great things that he has going on in his career that he can help you with as well. All right, let us get into the main card here. Very excited to hear your thoughts on this one. Sugar Sean O'Malley going up against Pedro Munhoz. Big price tag here on Sean O'Malley. He's coming in as the minus 295 favorite to the plus 245 Pedro Munhoz. First ranked opponent that Sean O'Malley's finally getting, right? Like, he's been picking and choosing his opponents pretty strategically. Obviously, he had that hiccup against Marlon Vera, but since then he's been going out there knocking out guys like Eddie Wineland, had that crazy fight with Chris Moutinho as well. And now he's finally getting Pedro Munhoz, who, in my opinion, out of all the ranked opponents, this couldn't be a better matchup for Sean, honestly. Like, Pedro likes to stalk his opponent. In my opinion, he's a little bit slow in terms of plodding forward and just trying to land those big shots. He uses his leg kicks pretty effectively, but I think the speed of Sean is going to be too much for Pedro here. He should be able to touch up Pedro from the outside. Sean likes finishing his opponents. He's very, he's a big knockout puncher, but Pedro Munhoz has never been knocked out in his 7 career losses. And he's taken some big shots over the years, right? Just look back at the Jose Aldo fight from a couple of years ago where Jose was letting him up. I think he landed over 150 significant strikes and Pedro didn't even flinch. Like, he was just moving forward the entire time. So I think Sean is going to struggle to put him away here. As long as he can stay away from the leg kicking game of Pedro Munhoz, he should be able to stay on the outside, use his speed, use his footwork, touch him up, win this fight via decision. But if Pedro lands those leg kicks, starts chopping at that calf, things are going to get very interesting, which is why I am not keen on paying minus 295 on the Sean O'Malley side. The spot that I've been seeing a lot of people like is the over 2.5 for this fight to go to a decision, which is roughly around even money at minus 110, minus 120. That's the bet that I would lean on for this fight. I see it going the full distance. I see it going 15 minutes, but that is all in hopes that Pedro Munhoz's kicking game does not go off here. What do you think about this matchup? What do you think about Sugar? What do you think about his rise? And do you think he passes this test?
First of all, great shout out from you to the true featherweight GOAT.
Yes.
In Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
Jose Aldo is the true featherweight GOAT. Volkanovski is not there yet. Okay. He could get there, but
he'll get there. But not yet.
Not yet, right? He could get there, but the true featherweight GOAT is Jose Aldo because of WEC, Uriah Faber, Mike Brown, all the men, like, put some
beast.
Stop it. Everyone only has recent history on their mind when they think about Volkanovski, in my opinion. Yeah. Now, that being said, I'm going Pedro Munhoz.
Ooh, upset city to start off the main card.
By 3rd round stoppage.
Ooh, okay. Break it down for me. You see him being successful with getting those pocket exchanges?
No, I see him getting murked in the first round. And I want to see what I don't believe in Sean O'Malley.
Oh, okay.
I believe Sean O'Malley, and I can be totally wrong here, right? Like this is all shit talking on the internet, on a podcast, right?
And people can't call you a keyboard warrior either, Elliot. You've been in there and you fucking done the dirt. So
I don't. Sean O'Malley quit against Chito Vera. That was like, sure, maybe his foot was hurt, but that was he quit and broke mentally in that fight when he couldn't get Chito Vera out of there. You could see it on his facial expressions before the injury. You could see it. That takes a lot of work to get better at. That doesn't happen in 2 fights, right? And he's so large as an individual, and he makes so much money. I don't know if he's working on those things. I think it's a little Conor-esque, right? Like, is Conor actually doing anything to be better and fill these holes that he has? Same thing here with Sean O'Malley. He has all the physical skills. I don't know that he has the mental attributes here, right? He is an amazing front runner. He has all of this physical ability. He murked somebody on the Dana White Contender Series when Snoop Dogg was there, so he blew up to stardom because Snoop loved him and Dana loved him and all of this, right? Is he doing the real work, which is the work between the ears? And I don't think he is.
Pedro's a tough out. Pedro's a tough out, though.
So I think he kills him until he gets tired.
And then you see a late finish for Pedro here.
Yeah, who's the kid that they brought in with the green hair?
Chris Moutinho.
Yeah, man, come on, bro. He slowed down against Chris Moutinho, and Chris Moutinho wasn't giving anything back.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't giving anything back. So
with all due respect, he was a punchy bag that night.
Yeah, and he hasn't done anything since, right? So I mean,
he lost his next fight, and I think he got cut.
Yeah. He had his 15 minutes of fame. Like that was great, but he had the kid's just tough. He doesn't have much as far as coming back. And look, Pedro Munhoz is going to be there the whole fight, and he's going to stay in your face and walk forward at you. And this is Sean O'Malley's kryptonite.
I'm looking forward to seeing him. Like, this is like a legitimate test for Sean. I've been waiting for a better opportunity to fade him, like betting against him and getting good underdog odds. I can't come to it with Pedro, but I am absolutely seeing what you're seeing as well. Like, I can see that path to victory here for Pedro. Survive the early onslaught, come on later, and break the will of Sean O'Malley later in this fight.
Plus 300 is crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
Disrespect,
right?
Mad disrespect.
Yeah, man. Like, Sean O'Malley's never beat anybody that's been any good.
Yeah.
Look, okay, Eddie Wineland's good, but we're not talking
at this
about
stage in his
not
career.
not
Not
right,
at
yeah,
this stage. Yeah.
Right. I really think the UFC should have allowed him to retire in the cage. I think he deserved that respect.
Yeah.
Now, but like come on, Sean, beat somebody.
Yeah. Well, if he wins this one, I'm sure he'll get a little bit more of your respect. We'll see how it comes out.
Does he have a number next to his name?
He does not.
Sean.
Pedro does, though. Pedro does, but not Sean.
Yeah.
If you are ballsy enough to bet on Munhoz to win in round 3, you can get up to plus 1,400 for him to get it done around round 3 there, especially if you get it done by KO in round 3. You're going to be looking at Munhoz KO round 3 is currently sitting at plus 2,200. So you put $100 down, you get 2,200. So
yo, let me know. I'll send you my Venmo.
What are you talking about? You can bet over there in Hawaii.
No, come on, man. I'll send you guys my Venmo, right? I'm telling you to bet that fight at that.
There you go.
That's what I'm saying the best money is. I'll send you my Venmo. We can make a deal, everybody. 10%.
I love it.
10%.
I love it. Before we move on to the next fight, I wanted to touch on this when we were talking about the Cerrone and Miller fight. Did you ever end up beating Mike Van Arsdale's ass or not? I don't know if it was the Budweiser talking that night, Elliot, but you seemed pretty peeved with Mr. Van Arsdale that night.
He was such an asshole to me, man. My whole career, he was such a fucking asshole to me. And
you never got your revenge, did you?
Look, I did actually.
Okay, perfect.
not physically. We've never trained. Right, we've never trained or anything, but verbally, I got my revenge. In the Dominican Republic.
Wow, like you guys just happened to pass by each other, essentially.
No, you remember that card years ago? It was called Genesis. and
yes,
they didn't pay the fighters.
Oh shit! Okay.
I was on that card. I was one of those fighters, you know. But he was the announcer of that fight, you know.
Oh.
And then afterwards, we were in the bar. Everyone's in the bar having some drinks, and I let him know how I felt.
Nemesis, is that what you're talking about? Nemesis. Yeah,
yes,
you beat Chris McNally by armbar that night.
By armbar, yeah.
Do you remember how quickly it was? Because it was round 1, but
look, guys, look, hold on. Yeah, it was real early because this fight was a shit show. It was in like the equivalent of a middle school, like, okay, so so we get there and we all want to weigh in because it's this long flight. We all want to check our weight. And they're like, the official scale will be down. The official scale will be down, you know? And we're all coming to our rooms, out of our rooms. And they bring the scale down, man. It's all they're talking about for 20 minutes is the fucking official scale. It's the scale from underneath the sink in everyone's hotel bathroom.
Oh, wow.
And then they put it down and my buddy steps on the scale and he's 7 pounds over, like the day of weigh-ins. And we're like, huh? And then we noticed that they put it on like this rubber floor. So we pick the scale up, we move it. So that's how this whole thing went. We're fighting in the equivalent of a high school gymnasium. The first fight goes, the first round of the first fight went 8 minutes because they didn't have a timekeeper. Okay. And then in the second round, the dude gets knocked out. And the dude gets knocked out and the ref is looking at him and he's looking around for the doctor and there's no doctor.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, oh shit, man. Yeah, let's get this one done fast. Like, fuck this feeling it out on the feet shit. Let
me go to my bread and butter.
Yeah, let's jab double leg, baby. You know, so
dude, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for this because it actually has a Wikipedia page, this event specifically. And like the first headline is controversy. Like it says that the event has been marred by accusations that fighters were not compensated. Were you paid for that? No.
Oh, I received a check that bounced.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so you didn't get paid at the end of the day. Keith Jardine was accused of greasing in the fight, but they had no judges and the time for the rounds were kept by a mobile phone. John Dodson had claimed his fight with John Moraga lasted 17 or 18 minutes. It was unorganized, said Dodson. They didn't have anything well put together. The promotion reportedly owed at least $233,000, which was never paid. The case has been even taken to the U.S. Secret Service. And the last thing on it was Nemesis Fight Promotions has not hosted an event since their website has been suspended. Good God, Elliot. I apologize that you had to go through something like that. But at least you got back to the UFC after that one, right? Like
you don't need to apologize. You know, life is not about what happens to you. It's about how you deal with what happens to you. So, you know,
look at the names on this card though. Paul Buentello,
dude,
Isaac Valley Flag,
stacked.
Terry Martin, John Dodson against John Moraga, Keith Jardine on the card as well too. Travis Marks, Kerry Shaw. Jeez Louise, some real OGs.
The check I had was 30 G's, bro.
Yeah, and
30
bounced.
G's and bounced.
Wow, I can only imagine what Keith was getting since he was headlining it too, right? Fuck,
250,
maybe 6. Wow, 6 figures, like legit 6 figures, and bounced. Good God. Who are the guys behind it?
Oh, God, I can't remember his name. Keith put him in a hotel room. Keith like pulled him in a hotel room.
Keith Wood.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Wow.
So I think Keith got a little bit of cash. He made, Keith made the guy write him a personal check.
Yeah,
you know?
must.
Yeah, so, but yeah.
Crazy.
The fight game. Here, you want a better story with this fight too? I got one.
Please,
got time. Okay.
I love it. If you have the time, that's the thing that I work about.
My wife's working right next to me. Like I said, it's early in the morning here in Hawaii. We ain't doing nothing.
Thanks, Mrs. Marshall.
Oh, he called you Mrs. Marshall, baby.
Is that no?
Said,
I'm
off.
sorry.
Man, she's got no respect. She won't change her name. I know, man. God damn it. No,
Mrs.
it's okay.
No?
So okay, so we cut weight, me and my buddy Sean, right? And you were allowed to do IVs back in the day, right? Yes. So let's remember that was okay. Okay, so nothing illegal going on. And so mine's in, and when you fight after you cut weight, you're really, really hot. And it's the DR right now, right? So they had these really nice tile floors and the room was air conditioned. So I have this IV in my arm and I'm laying on the floor like, oh, fuck yeah. You know, and
trying to get the cold
tiles. And my buddy Tyler Toner, who's now a firefighter. Yep, he's with us, and he is putting the IV in another friend's arm, because we had 2 guys on the card. So he's sitting there trying to get the needle in his arm, and he's missed a couple times. So there's like blood everywhere, and someone's trying to inject a needle in someone's arm. And we don't hear the housekeeper, and she opens the door, and I'm laying on the floor like, oh God, I'm like, oh my God, this feels so good, and
blood on the other side,
blood everywhere. And Tyler's like this with a needle, right? And my buddy Sean's sitting there going, oh God, did you get it in yet, man? Did you get it in yet? Right?
Bro, that is hilarious.
And the lady opens the door, and she sees this scene, and she's like, Dragus, and she runs out the door, right? Because you got to remember, we're in the Dominican Republic now, so it's probably huge,
Yeah.
And then Amal, who can speak Spanish, runs after, and he's like, no, and he has to explain this whole scene to her, and I don't give a fuck, right? Because I just cut all this weight, and Sean, all Sean cares about is if the goddamn IV is going to go in, right? So it was just a scene.
Bro, those honestly, regional MMA, that stuff is the best. I helped out a lot with a lot of regional MMA up here in Southern Ontario and Canada as soon as it got legalized back in 2011. And I love half the guys accepting fights on weigh-in day that are clearly not capable of fighting, but somehow the commission allows them to fight. And then right after his fight, he's outside smoking weed right after he literally just got knocked out. Just some crazy shit you see on the regional scene. So I'd love hearing those types of stories that you're able to provide for us.
It only happens on the regional scene because the UFC is too organized and professional.
Yes, exactly. They won't let any of that shit fly. Absolutely not. And shout out to my guy, Ken Gomez, wishing me a happy Canada Day. Happy Canada Day to my fellow Canadians as well. Elliot, I believe Independence Day is just around the corner, right? So you guys got happy Monday. 4th of July.
Yeah, Monday's
early 4th of July to you guys as well. This weekend's big for a lot of us here in North America. All right. Let us get back onto the rails here. We derailed a little bit, but
sorry.
No worries, dude. I love it. I love this type of banter and this type of talk, and it seems like the guys in the live chat are very much enjoying it as well. All right. Next up, we got another legend walking to the cage here. We got Robbie Lawler taking on Brian Barbarena. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 120 now, I believe, for Robbie Lawler. Yeah, minus 120 for Robbie Lawler, plus 100 the return on Brian Barbarena. Now, Lawler was the last one to hit the scales today. Looked a little bit shaky on the scales, looked a little bit softer than we're usually seeing him, but he just turned 40, guys. Let's cut him a little bit of slack, right? He just turned 40 a couple months ago. And at that point in fighters' careers, it starts to go downhill from there too, especially with a guy like Robbie, who's been in nothing but wars in pretty much every single one of his fights. You're going to start to see it start to show. On the flip side for Brian Barbarena, I believe he's 32, 33 years old, but even his career seems to be on a bit of a downslide when he's fighting legitimate competition, although he is right now on a 2-fight winning streak over guys like Darian Weeks and the ghost of Matt Brown, who he beat by split decision back in March of this year in front of his hometown as well, I should say, out there in Ohio. Robbie Lawler, in my opinion, is one of those guys that has not benefited from his strength of schedule pre-Nick Diaz fight, right? To me, the Nick Diaz fight was a novelty fight. I'm not even taking that into consideration. Nick did not look like he even wanted to be in there to fight. To be honest, it seemed like as soon as he got dinged on the nose that he just wanted out of there. So I'm not taking too much away from that, other than Robbie can still throw punches. He can still throw with heat. He can still throw combinations. That's some good work from him. But the Neil Magny fight, Neil Magny is a fucking grinder and a half. He got 4 takedowns in that fight and just put Robbie Lawler through the absolute ringer in that fight. Fight before that, Colby Covington gets taken down 10 times in that fight, gets outstruck by 100 significant strikes as well. Ben Askren, very weird fight there. He almost finishes Ben Askren, then gets submitted by that bulldog choke. Still not sure to this day whether he tapped or whether he was out, but he still ended up taking it out that night.
Stop it.
He didn't tap. He didn't tap. He didn't tap. I know he didn't
Stop
tap.
it.
I know. Dude, if I hit that, if Robbie Lawler won that night, I would have won like 12 grand off this crazy parlay that I had. But Herb Dean fucks it up for me once again.
Was that the only thing that happened for you?
That was the only thing that went wrong.
Oh, God. How did you not shoot Herb Dean?
If I see him, it's still to be determined.
I mean, I love Herb, but that was a mistake. That was a bad mistake, right?
That was a bad mistake. And then Rafael dos Santos. Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, Rafael dos Santos. Go ahead.
Yeah. Rafael dos Anjos was the fight before that for Robbie Lawler, and he just got outworked in that fight as well. This fight seems stylistically the most favorable for Robbie Lawler since he fought Donald Cerrone back in 2017. Like, this is a guy that's going to be willing to strike with him, trade in the pocket, and allow Robbie Lawler to do Robbie Lawler's shit. Brian Barbarena is not going to go out there and try to grapple fuck Robbie Lawler into the ground like Neil Magny and Colby Covington were looking to do in those fights. So I think we will see glimpses of the old Robbie Lawler in this fight in certain spots. I don't know if it's still going to be enough to overcome the youth advantage that Brian Barbarena is going to have here. I still come out on the Robbie Lawler side in terms of a prediction, but I honestly want nothing to do with this fight. Like, it could go either way. They might want to pander to the crowd and have this crazy back and forth fight, try to get that fight of the night bonus as well. But I do end up on the Lawler side. I think he'll land the better shots, and I think he takes home a decision victory if he doesn't already knock out Brian Barbarena earlier in this fight. So I'll go Robbie. What are you thinking about Elliot, man? Like, again, when you see guys like this, 40 years old, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think power never leaves, but speed and timing does.
Yes.
Right? Speed and timing does. And probably you don't spar that much as you get older, right? Because it's just too much wear and tear on the body. So, this one I'm going Barbarena by decision. He does not get him out of there. But I'm going to say a clean sweep, 30-27 Barbarena.
You worked with Neil back in the day, yeah?
I think I had that work with him for this fight. No.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you because if I recall correctly, Robbie took that Neil Magny fight on short notice, and that's not something Robbie Lawler does, especially at this point of his career. So maybe that was also a sign of maybe he just needs some cash.
Some cash. Yeah,
that's
probably needs some. Look, this is again. There's a lot of these on this card. You know.
Yeah.
Robbie probably doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
You know? Probably doesn't have much, and doesn't know what else to do with his life. Loves fighting, you know, and here he is.
All right, so we disagree on that. I'm sure even your heart is hoping that Robbie Lawler wins this fight, but from a logical perspective,
from my heart wants him to win. He's a legend, yada yada, right? Like, he and I fought on the same cards together. That you know, he's always very nice to me. So, my heart wants Robbie Lawler, but like the Father Time's a winner, man. Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah, I like it. All right, let's move on to a very intriguing fight here in the middleweight division. This is easily a number one contender fight. Whoever comes victorious here will likely fight the winner of the main event, which will more than likely be Adesanya. But let's get into this one. We got Alex Pereira going up against Sean Strickland. Your guy, Eric Nixick's boy there as well. I think he's going to be cornering him for this fight, if I'm not mistaken. In terms of odds, we're looking at and seeing some money come in on Strickland over the last 24 hours. He's up to minus 125 now, plus 105 the return on Alex Pereira. I was one of those guys that faded Alex Pereira in his last fight against Bruno Silva because I wanted to see his grappling get tested, and I felt we saw it a little bit tested. We saw him get taken down, but I saw things that we saw from Adesanya from earlier in his UFC career. And what I mean by that is he did get taken down in his first couple fights in the UFC, but his insistence to not settle allowed him to get right back to his feet. He doesn't allow any moment for his opponent to settle on top. He works right back to the cage, gets back to his feet, and then gets back to his handiwork. That's what I saw from Pereira in his last two fights, and that's impressed me enough to believe that he could come out victorious this weekend over Sean Strickland. Now, I get it. Strickland, solid jiu-jitsu player. I think he's a black belt at this point in time. Last I heard, he was a brown belt. But over his last couple fights, since he had that motorcycle accident back in 2019, he's mainly been focusing on his striking. You see in the statistics, he's landing over 120 strikes per fight over the last 5 fights, pretty much just beating these guys up with the jab and then breaking them with the pressure that he's able to put on these guys. But a lot of his defensive tendencies, in my opinion, might be a liability here. His defensively, he rolls with the shots a lot, right? He tries to just get out of the way of them. Now you're fighting a taller guy, a guy with more reach than you, and can hit like a Mack truck. And I think at a certain point in time, he's going to be able to find that chin of Sean Strickland, probably put him down and out. It might not be the punch, but it might be the head kick that comes after the punch as Sean Strickland is rolling to his left or to his right. I think Pereira sees that clear as day on tape, and he's going to try to take advantage of it. It's that defense is not going to work against a taller guy, let alone a taller guy who's a much better technical striker than Sean Strickland. So, yeah, Strickland might outstrike him numbers-wise, but when it comes to the technique and the damage, I think that's going to be on Pereira's side. Even if Strickland looks to go to the grappling route here, I don't think he can assert it effectively enough to give Pereira some issues here. I think Pereira will be able to work back to his feet, get back to his handiwork, and unfortunately knock out Sean Strickland. I'm a big Sean Strickland fan. I love what he does inside the cage. His outside of the cage antics could, be taken with a grain of salt every now and then.
What makes you a fan of Sean Strickland other than his style in the cage?
That's what I mean. I am a fan of his style. Like I am a fan of Michael Jackson's music. Maybe not so much of a fan of.
Oh, bro, come on, stop! I don't even allow that shit to be played.
You know what I mean, though. Like Floyd.
You can't Floyd Mayweather, okay, but Michael Jackson took it to a way farther. Yeah,
I'm saying
Michael Jackson. If you're a fan of Michael Jackson, don't talk to me.
Not in the music. You can't get down to Beat It or Thriller. You don't fuck with that.
Of course, it's amazing music. You won't say that,
That's
right?
What I'm saying. I'm separating art from personal.
But I won't listen to it though.
Oh, you won't listen? Okay.
No.
I'll respect that. I'm not going to hate on anybody for that.
I'm going to hate on you for listening to it.
I will. Dude, my initials are MJ. You know what I mean? I've been called Michael Jackson almost.
Just go Michael Jordan. He was never a piece of shit.
Or Mary Jane, but it's totally fine. It's no, but that's what I mean with Sean Strickland. I try to separate the art from the person, and inside the cage, he's a great mixed martial artist. The way that he puts his punches together. But I think he's getting knocked out this weekend. Yeah. And I think Alex Pereira gets that title shot. What do you think about this matchup?
So I think you hit the nail on the head here. Sean, this is to me reminiscent of Chris Lieben, Anderson Silva, right? Like Chris Lieben is this knockout artist, right? But he just brawls, right? And survives difficulty. And look, I won't say that Sean Strickland is quite Chris Lieben as far as I think Sean Strickland's better than Chris Lieben, So I think it won't happen in the first minute like it did to Lieben, I'll say. But I think it's what happens. I think we'll see a very similar style of finish of like Sean Strickland, like really trying to stay in there. It won't be this massive one shot that does it, So yeah, that's my opinion of this fight. I don't see how Sean Strickland wins. I don't personally like Sean Strickland, but whatever. And there's that viral video of him and Orlando Sanchez, right? Which Sean Strickland does that shit too.
He was just getting a taste of his own medicine.
He was just getting a taste of his own medicine, and I won't say Orlando Sanchez was right. I would get really mad if somebody did that to me. Yeah. Right? Because it's like, dude, you're just going to hurt my arm. It's not even like you're going to.
And I'm preparing for a fight. I'm about to go out there and try to feed my family. Or I don't know. I guess he doesn't have a family, but you know what I mean? Like he's trying to pay his bills.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter to me when you're that type of person as well. Mm-hmm. Like would Sean Strickland care if somebody else was that he didn't know was preparing for a fight?
Probably.
No, he probably wouldn't. So whatever. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander, but it is dirty. And I think the same for Sean Strickland.
I don't know why a part of me thought that you would end up on the Sean Strickland side based on the
how far Eric.
You're removed from exactly right. I thought you'd be going with next 6 guys here, but I guess you're seeing what I'm seeing as well in terms of
I just don't like
speaking.
Him. Yeah. Well, on a personal side, I just don't like what I see of his personality.
Yeah.
And 2, technically, he's just not good enough to do that to somebody who's the style of Pereira.
Yeah. No, I like to hear that. Gives me a little bit more confidence as well, because I was a little bit like hesitant. I was like, hey, why is there money coming in on Strickland now? Like, why is the public really leaning on him? Sure, he has the better mixed martial art experience, but based on the way he fights and how he has tried to employ grappling in the past, it's just not effective enough to me for what Pereira will do in return.
The public is the public, right? The public probably watched the press conference and saw him get into it with Israel.
I think it is
Israel Adesanya, right? And they're like, "Oh wow, look at that!" And they hear his name, and maybe they liked the exchange of that, and then they relate that to his fighting ability and.
Which is nonsense. Like it is nonsense. Yeah. Complete nonsense. Like I don't get why people use that in their handicapping is like, oh, based on the press conference, I think this guy's going to win. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? Like you said in your TED Talk itself, right? People have different ways of preparing for fights and shading their nervousness or the anxiety of going into a cage and fighting another man. You know what I mean? In your underwear out there, people have different ways of hiding that. It might be bravado. It might be not saying anything. Right. And in Sean Strickland's case, it's the bravado.
It's the bravado. And look, that I'm not saying in no way by picking Pereira here are we saying that Strickland's not a good fighter. He's a very good fighter.
Yes.
Right? Like so
he's earned this spot.
He's earned the spot, and this is a title eliminator fight for a reason. It looks as it should be here. I would say as it should be because I think it might be a little early for Pereira because it's only his third fight. But we'll get to it. Adesanya's cleaned out the division. Yes. So you want to see some new blood,
Absolutely. I agree. All right, let's move on to the co-main event here. We got a featherweight strap on the line. Alexander Volkanovski looking to defend his title for the fourth time, second time against Max Holloway here. In terms of odds, we got minus 200 on Alexander the Great Volkanovski and plus 170 on blessed Max Holloway. Just to put into perspective, the first time these guys threw down at UFC 245 in December of 2019, Max Holloway was the minus 200 favorite. He ends up losing that fight. Very great tactical performance from Alexander Volkanovski, employing the leg kicks and letting the rest of his game go behind that. Then in the second fight, Volkanovski ends up being the minus 200 favorite again, or the odds completely flipping there. Volkanovski being the minus 200 favorite. Better showing for Max Holloway in that fight as he drops Volkanovski in the first and second round. Unfortunately, he can't put it together in the third, fourth, or fifth, which is where Volkanovski was able to start pulling away, and he was able to earn the decision victory that night. Here they are now, both of them, I believe, having two fights since then. Obviously, we saw Max Holloway dispatch of Calvin Kattar while achieving God mode that night, landing like upwards of 500 significant strikes that night. Then he follows that up with a pretty close-ish fight against Yair Rodriguez back in November. On the flip side for Alexander Volkanovski, goes out there and has a hellacious performance against Brian Ortega, nearly getting his head popped off with that guillotine in that third round. Survives that, comes back and wins that fight, and then just puts an absolute shit kicking on Korean Zombie back in April. And now here we are having the trilogy matchup. I'm a big Volkanovski fan. I've been riding the wave ever since he's made it to the UFC. He doesn't do one specific thing great, but he does everything so great together, essentially, right? He's a great mixed martial artist. He blends the takedowns with his grappling, with his striking, with his kicking, with his punching, everything. He's able to put it together. And, we got to give some credit to his head coaches. Most notably, obviously, Eugene Behrman is one of his head coaches over there. They do a great job of coming up with game plans. And then Volkanovski does the best job in terms of going out there and executing them. So shout out to Volkanovski for the run that he's on. I think it's a 20-fight winning streak now. He's only had one loss, I believe, which is the first or second fight ever. And then since then, he's never looked back. Holloway, I think it's going to be one of those spots where it's like, I think it's Mike Brown and Uriah Faber, where like there's just always that kryptonite. There's always that guy that you're never going to be able to get past. And unfortunately for Max Holloway, it's Alexander Volkanovski. Luckily for Holloway, though, he touched gold before Volkanovski was able to get up here. So it's not like he's never been champion. But I think at this point in time, as long as Volkanovski is around and close to his prime, it's going to be tough for Holloway to overcome this. Now, from a betting perspective, I still think the line is wide. At minus 200, I get it. He's beaten them twice. He had a great performance against Korean Zombie last time around, but we saw from all 10 rounds that we've seen these guys compete against each other, it's a close fight no matter what. But Volkanovski always edges it out ever so slightly. I would put the odds closer to about minus 140 for Volkanovski, which I think would be a little bit more accurate, but I still expect him to come out on the winning side. I expect this fight to go the distance as well. I'd be very surprised if either guy pulls off a finish here. Both guys very durable, very difficult to put away. So I'm going to go Volkanovski by decision, plus 125. Big Max Holloway fan, but I just don't think he's going to be able to overcome the great Alexander Volkanovski. What are your thoughts here, Elliot?
I thought your assessment of Volkanovski is very good. It's very GSP-esque.
Yeah.
I would like you to realize here, like I did compare him to a GOAT.
The greatest Canadian of all time? Sure.
Yeah. But he already has a title, not what you do with Cain Velasquez.
I knew it was going to come back and bite me in the butt. I knew it. Fuck.
Okay? You see? Like the man already has a belt, so we can compare him to another person with a belt.
Move on, Elliot. Move on. Killing me over here.
Now, that being said, I put a little less stock into I think the odds are so large because of how good Volkanovski looked against Zombie. Yeah. That's not fair. Zombie is, again, on that older thing, right? Like, so yeah, Zombie hasn't looked good lately at all, against really high level competition, in my opinion. So, I think he looked good against Yair Rodriguez and then ended up getting knocked out, right? But other than that, I don't think he's looked great in his fights. So I put less stock on that. You know, I think this is again people just looking at results and not really breaking it down. This is a really close fight because they've all been really close. You know, even when Volkanovski took the title from Max, it wasn't like he won it, but it wasn't this blowout. You know, and then the last fight was a 3-2 fight. So with Volkanovski being in danger twice, right? So
great championship mentality as well, though, right? Like down in the first 2 rounds, got rocked in both of those first 2 rounds, and then sucked it back up, made the adjustments, and won the next 3 rounds.
Take nothing away from him. The only thing I'm trying to point out here is that these odds are too big to bet.
Yeah.
Right. You can't be at plus 280 or nobody should be that again. If you're fighting Max Holloway with this current Max Holloway that we have right now, there's no way that odds should look like that. Never. Anybody.
Minus 200 is what Volkanovski sits at. So that's a 66% implication that he wins this fight, or implied odds.
That's a little high.
I still think that's high.
Still a little high.
It should be between 55 and 60% if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Somewhere in there. He's the favorite, no doubt. Like, don't get me wrong. He's definitely the favorite.
And you're going to pick him to win. You think he retains the title? You're defensive for the 4th time. Perfect. I love it.
Max has to put him away.
Is there a guy off the top of your head in the featherweight division that you think actually gives Volkanovski a test? Right there really isn't. Not that I can think of either. There's one guy I think he still has some work to do, but the only guy in the rankings in the top 15 right now I feel like could maybe give him a little bit of an issue is Movsar Evloev. Russian guy, just beat Dan Ige, if I'm not mistaken. He's on the rise right now. I think he's up there, and he's going to, great wrestler, great cardio, was the M1 global champion as well, undefeated. He's the only guy.
We just need to see more from him.
Exactly. We need to see him continue to climb the ranks, right? Dan Ige was a great win, but now let's add more names to the list, right? Yair Rodriguez. Let's try to get those guys under your belt before you actually start.
We just don't know enough yet. That's all we're saying, right? Like Dan Ige was great. We just don't know enough about what he's capable of.
Yeah, perfect. All right, let us go to the main event here. We got the middleweight title on the line. We got Israel Adesanya going up against Jared Cannonier. In terms of odds, biggest discrepancy here in terms of odds on the entire card. Minus 500 for Israel Adesanya, plus 375 the return on Jared Cannonier. Just to give you a perspective from the implied odds side of things, 83.33% implied that Israel Adesanya wins this fight. Hard to disagree with that. I think stylistically that this is a great matchup for him. What does Cannonier do better than him? Maybe he has more knockout power, but that's really about it, right? He's not going to grapple him into the ground. He's not going to be able to outstrike him. He's not going to be able to out-combination him or anything like that. So I'm struggling to see where Jared Cannonier wins this fight. Adesanya, as long as he doesn't get clipped by a missile of any kind, he should be able to pretty much do what Adesanya does. Just work from the outside, touch him up, and really put the work on him. Like, I think Paulo Costa was a tougher matchup for him than Jared Cannonier is going to be, right? We also got 38-year-old Jared Cannonier here. It's not like he's a young kid by any means, right? He's pretty much the next one up because there's nobody else, right? It was supposed to be Derek Brunson. He beats Derek Brunson a couple months ago, and he earns himself a title shot. Now here he is. Yeah, it's just more so like you were touching on it earlier. Adesanya's cleared out the division, man. Jared Cannonier, unfortunately, is the next one up, and Adesanya should be able to go out there and do work. The guys that give Adesanya problems are going to be the guys that can match his physique, right? Maybe Alex Pereira gives him issues once if they end up throwing down, right? But like we saw it in the Jan Blachowicz fight. Jan Blachowicz was arguably outstriking Adesanya in the first couple rounds there, right? Because he didn't have as much reach to or distance to close because he's almost just as big as Adesanya. He could get to that punch a lot quicker than the guys at 185 were having to close that distance against Adesanya. So, yeah, in regards to this matchup, easy cruises, easy decision is what I'm thinking. There's also lines out there where you can pick easy by round 4, round 5, or decision. And I think that's a better line than his actual money line here. But I think he cruises, man. If you are Jared Cannonier's coach, how are you telling him to go about this fight? How do you beat Adesanya with the tools that Cannonier has?
Get in there and get dirty.
Yeah.
Push him backwards. Get in his grill.
Don't give him space.
Don't give him space. And way harder said than done.
Oh, yeah. I think Paulo Costa tried that as well, and he got his calf chewed up and then eventually finished.
Yeah, way harder said than done, you know? So no space, don't give him any. And yeah, no way. But it's not happening.
I feel exactly. I feel you're pretty heavy on the Adesanya side here, yeah?
It's not happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Shout out to my guy, MMW, on the chat here saying, yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
The only thing that I would say is that I want to see Pereira win because we all want to see that fight, you know, because of all of the hype in, you know, that he knocked him out and yada yada, you know.
I agree. I do want to shout out my guy MMW here saying middleweight is a very shallow division, and I kind of agree. Right, the one thing that Adesanya,
no, stop it. No, I disagree. I disagree. No,
in terms of there not being much of a grappling threat. Right, that was the kryptonite of Adesanya. There is not a standout wrestler. The best wrestler in the top 5 there is Marvin Vettori, but he's not really a wrestler. Right, he's a grinder. And he couldn't even get Adesanya to the ground effectively enough to grind him out. Whereas the welterweight division, all wrestlers, right? You got Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, Khamzat Chimaev, all these guys. Whereas middleweight, it's just other strikers, and Adesanya is clearly the better one.
Look, sure, okay. But a lot of people said this during Anderson Silva's reign about middleweight was like the division shallow.
He's just so much better.
You just have so much better person.
Yes.
The division's not shallow, right? Like there's just one guy that is really was light heavyweight shallow during John Jones's time? Because DC was in there, and DC just got inducted into the Hall of Fame, right? But John Jones starched him twice.
Yep.
Right. So was light heavyweight shallow, or is John Jones just that good? Is the question.
Yeah, because if you take those guys out of it, if you take John Jones away from it, if you take Demetrius Johnson away from the flyweight division when he was dominating it, these guys are all fighting a lot closer to their level of competition, right? Or their level of skill, I should say. So, I will backtrack on the shallow part. You are correct. It is just the gap. The skill gap is just too wide.
When you get these goats that come around, you know, then you know, just these phenomenal champions. And we have one right now in the middleweight division. We might have one in featherweight. Where we don't have one is bantamweight, for example.
Yes. Yeah, we got Sterling as a champion. Jan probably number 2.
Yeah. We have Aljo. Yeah, sorry. Aljo's the champion. Yep. Jan is number 2. And then TJ's in there.
Yep. Sandhagen is hovering around there as well.
Sandhagen's hovering, right? But he's lost to both Jan and he's lost to those other 3, TJ, Jan, and Sterling, right? So Sandhagen's not there yet, right? Because he's outside of that.
Yeah. But those top 3 could be tussling with each other
right
a couple times.
If Corey has had a belt, then you can put him in there, but Corey hasn't had the belt yet. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
You can't put him up there with those other 3 guys because they've all been title holders. Now, look, we have to see what TJ does here against Aljo.
Yeah.
Right? Because we have to see that, because if TJ beats Aljo and then the next fight will be Jan, right? If he beats Aljo.
Absolutely agree.
And TJ beats Jan, then you're going to say the same thing that TJ's above everyone. Right? Because he's beaten everyone and no one else has really. You know, so we just have to see what's up here, and so, but that, you know, so that's just a division where it's a little mixed up, right? We might see if Charles Oliveira is able to get through Islam Makhachev, we've got the same thing in that division where you have just a champion that's so much ahead of, but
and finishing dudes.
God,
Oliveira's on some next shit right now, man. Holds a record for most finishes.
He's on some next shit. This is the next shit that he's on. Is what he's.
And
got
that was an
going
issue for him back in the day, right? Like that, people thought that he used to break and used to fall. Now he's like, nah, dog, I've been through it.
But this is my argument with Sean O'Malley. He has to go through that.
Yes.
Right. That and he hasn't gone through that yet. The thing and I don't know that he will be able to, because he's so hyped and he's so famous, where Charles Oliveira was never famous. He Charles Oliveira was just this journeyman fighter, and it was given this opportunity by not being famous and in the spotlight to step back and work on that. Sean O'Malley is not going to have that opportunity, because every fight, he's the most talked about fighter on the card. He's probably the most talked about fighter on this card, right?
Probably. It must be, right? Adesanya is probably number 2, but yeah, Sean O'Malley is the one getting the spots on the Pat McAfee show and all that stuff, right? Like he's the one getting those primetime spots. So I absolutely understand that point of view as well. Elliot, I've taken way more time than I asked of you here, but I do want to ask you one more thing, and then I'll let you plug your stuff and we can get out of here.
Yeah.
Your most confident spot on the card. Give me 2 fighters, parlay them together. We'll tell them the viewers who are the 2 most confident spots for you on this card.
Adesanya.
Yep, I think that's without a doubt. And who would you put him with? And yeah, I give you $1,000, and you put two fighters together. Who are you putting your money on?
Maycee Barber.
Maycee Barber and Israel Adesanya. I believe that will get you about -140. Still not a bad payout. I think on $1,000, that's about $800 return. Not bad. But no, I like it. I agree. I think both those fighters win. I think the Barber fight will be a little bit of a sweat, but I still do think she comes out on the other end with the win. For myself personally, I don't have a big bet on the card. Very difficult card for me to truly put big money down on with supreme confidence. But I do. My biggest play is the fight goes to decision for Maycee Barber and Jessica I, as parlayed with the Volkanovski and Holloway fight goes to decision. That pays out roughly about +105, depending on the bookie that you can get there. So I think both those fights.
That's 100% going to a decision.
Perfect. I'd love to hear it. Even better for me. Even more confidence there. And if anything, I've even gained more confidence on the Alex Pereira side after this podcast as well, because I like that you see the defensive liabilities that Sean Strickland brings to the table here against a much more seasoned and better striker.
It's just styles. It's just styles, right? And styles make fights.
Yeah.
You know, styles make fights. And that style that Strickland has matches up perfectly for Alex Pereira. He's good. He's going to not hit him, you know, and get hit.
And if Cerrone and Miller go to a draw, I will be tagging my guy Elliot Marshall.
Hey, your boy.
and viral
show
views.
Me the money, baby.
Viral
show
views,
me
show
the money.
The views.
Show me. That's all. Yeah, you're not going to show me any money, so show me the views.
Exactly. Let's make it go viral. I appreciate it. Elliot, I'll give you the platform one last time here. Please plug any and everything that you want the people to know about. This is your opportunity to do so, my friend.
First of all, man, Preet, thanks for having me back on. Guys,
it's always a treat.
Thanks for listening. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. I think we went a little longer than last time, a little over an hour and a half, but
good.
Yeah, so thank you all. Look, I have 2 podcasts. Depends on what you're into, okay? If you are into this MMA style of stuff, then I have Seconds Out with Eric Nixick, where we break down fights. We'll be back on this Monday breaking down fights. And then if you are into the personal development style of podcasts, really kind of digging into yourself and trying to be – I don't like to use the word better. I like to say more skillful human being. That I have my other podcast, The Gospel of Fire. So all of that can be found on my website, elliottmarshall.com. Fire Marshall 205 is the Instagram. And like I said at the beginning of the show, when you talked about the TED Talk a little bit, man, if you guys are interested or needing in any way some type of keynote talk, sales team talk, whatever it is, hit your boy up. I'd love to do it.
There you guys go. And you guys can get the full preview, especially with that TED Talk, because my man Elliot absolutely kills it on there. Just YouTube search it. YouTube search his name. You'll be able to find it. I believe it's one of the first searches that pops up, and that should be more than enough to sell you guys on my guy Elliot. If the last hour and 40 already didn't sell you on my guy Elliot, I'm sure that will as well. Elliot, as always.
You love me or hate me, man, Preet. There's no in the middle. You know, my wife likes to say I'm a fungus, so whatever.
Hey, she's not even taking the last name, right? So she's a little bit feisty on the.
She's always got one foot out the door. Damn it, man, Preet. She's always got one foot out the door.
She knows she doesn't have to change her documents or anything like that, so it makes sense. She's
like she used to use the excuse that changing her nursing license is why she didn't do it, because she was a nurse and do so much work, but she has moved on from that job, so I'm not quite seeing why.
I see you looking at her while you're saying this.
Yeah, of course I'm looking at her. I'm trying to put some heat on my girl.
I love it, Elliot.
She said I'm welcome to change my name. The kids have my name. Then we'd all have to, man, look, we have enough soft men in this world. I ain't gonna join that.
What would be the last name, if you don't mind me asking?
Look, I understand why she doesn't change her name. It rhymes. Renee O'Shea.
Oh, okay. Hey, yeah, you gotta. I get it.
Nah, dog.
No, Elliot, honestly, I really appreciate it as always. You did this on short notice for me. I truly appreciate it. You are the fucking man. I always enjoy talking to you. Good luck on the draw call this weekend with Miller and Cerrone. Appreciate the insight as always. The viewers love you. I love you. And I can't wait to talk to you again in the very near future, my friend. Enjoy Hawaii and good luck with everything else.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.